Hello, everyone. I'm Dr. Olivia. I'm a consultant in the NHS in the UK, and I talk about life in the UK as an international medical graduate. So, one of the questions that people have posed is, should I even bother moving to the UK with everything that's going on? How can I plan my life out in such a way that I make the right decision? It's never an easy thing to think about, and I don't think any decision is necessarily right or wrong. But I have a few things in mind that I thought of when I was deciding whether I should move to the UK, and maybe it might be helpful to some of you out there, whether you're in the medical field or not. So, the first thing I think that should be considered is family. Family, friend, support system. Where is your family? Who do you want around you? How easy is it to get persons that you care about to be with you in a different country? Okay, if you've got elderly parents, for example, do they need your physical input? Do you have to be there with them? And can they come with you, or can you make arrangements for them to come afterwards? So this has been a topic of debate recently because it's more difficult now for persons who are studying or persons who are working to bring across elderly parents, for example. Or if you have an immediate family, so your husband, children, and they're already in the UK, for example, then that would make it more likely that you'd want to come to the UK. Or if you are the first one going across, how easy would it be for you to apply for them to come with you? So one of the things that is quite useful is checking out the government UK website, because any changes in immigration, any rules that are changed would normally be updated onto there. So that's one place to have a good look at. But apart from just your immediate family, thinking about extended family or friends or people who can support you in somewhere that is completely new to you, for example. So if you've got cousins, friends of friends in the US or the UK, that might be something to consider. So the second thing is thinking about the culture, the everyday way of living amongst the people. I will say that it is different in London compared to cities or towns or villages outside of London. So thinking about whether you're going to be in London is an important factor, because sometimes when people think of certain cities like London or Paris, they think of very specific things like cafes and museums and the West End theatre, for example. And you may not always get that. If it's your first time in the UK, it's quite difficult to get a job in London as your very first job. So be willing to move out to places outside of London who may have a very different culture, everyday way of living. But that is something that persons can consider. You know, do I enjoy this cultural aspect of living in the UK, or does it not matter to you at all? Like, who cares about theaters and museums? That's not on my list at all. But apart from the extracurricular, the leisure activities, just the general day-to-day, what is it like? So I find that in the UK there's a very or in London rather, there's a very nonchalant way of doing things. You know, most persons don't really care about what other people have to say or do. They just live their lives and go about their daily business. But some people may find that a positive thing. Some people may find that quite a negative thing. One of my cousins, when she came to the UK to study, that was one of her favorite things about being in the UK. It was that she could get up in the morning, go out, do her groceries, and nobody would talk about what she wore, how she did her hair, and she was quite happy about that. You know, but some people may say, actually, no, I'm missing the camaraderie, the community spirit. And again, outside of London, you may get a different experience with a more small village community feel. Okay, and part of the everyday living, the diversity, the types of people that you find around you. In London, you find almost every single culture, every single community from around the world. Wherever you are from, you will probably come and be able to find people who have similar interests and of a similar cultural background. That's a major positive. Be able to find a church, mosque, temple, to be able to worship. And I found that as a massive positive. But the way of living can be quite different depending on the time of year. So if you've never experienced the seasons, winter being so super cold, actually it's not too bad these days, but you've never experienced winter, I would suggest, or I would recommend, that person should come, even if it's for a few weeks or a month. Come when you can do a particular exam that you might need to do before you're able to work in the UK, and try to come during a period of time that you don't usually experience, for example, in the winter, just to see what your body is like during that time. Because again, I had another relative who came to the UK and she couldn't make it through the winter. She would get blisters on her hands and feet and pain, and the seasonal affective disorders and seasonal depression is a real thing. So being able to experience the seasons and the way of life of people during that time, I think is quite important. Okay, so the third thing that I would consider is the potential for progression within your career or job opportunities that are out there in a particular field that you would want to work in the future. So I think that initially it's quite difficult to get a job in the UK. I had to apply for maybe about 40 jobs before I got my first one. And it takes quite a long time to progress in your career, but it is possible, and you are able to specialize in specific areas even though you may have done your medical degree outside of the UK. Over the years, things have changed. When I first came about 10 years ago, it was more difficult to specialize if you came from abroad. It is still quite difficult, but they have changed some of the rules in order to make it possible for persons from an international medical graduate background to be able to get through the system as I did. And some persons may think, actually, I don't even want to specialize. I may just want a change of my work environment. Wherever I'm working now, I'm just too stressed, I'm too fed up, there's too much happening. I don't have the resources that I would need to in order to be able to treat people the way I would want them to be treated. There are many reasons, but again, I always tell people that the grass is never greener on the other side. The brown patches are just in different places. I must have seen this somewhere, but it came to my mind now. It's not that you're going to leave one thing for something that is so much better. There are benefits, but every system, every job, every hospital, every human being, everything has its strengths and its weaknesses. So coming to a different work environment, yes, there are positives, and yes, you would have more resources, but again, you'd have to weigh up the difficulties within the NHS. Long waiting times, lots of people coming through the system. See what the work-life balance is like, and to do that, I would always encourage people to try and do an observership if you are able to do so, and we can probably go into that in a bit more detail in another video. But see what the work environment is like. So see what the everyday living is like, and see what the doctors or whichever job that you're applying for, if you're not from a medical background, just see what their work week looks like, what time they're able to leave, ask them about what they're able to do. Do they have the work-life balance that you're seeking, possibly? So just a change in pace, a change in environment. Some people just want to come for that, not necessarily to specialize. I just need to be in a different working setup. So working environment feeds into the job opportunities that I spoke about. And the last one that probably is one of the bigger considerations that people think about when they think about moving to any country, any quote unquote Western country, Canada, the US, the UK, is the money. Yeah, so when I think about the concept of money and working in the UK, I think you have to take into account so many different things. If you have a student loan, you may have had to take quite a big loan if you studied medicine. So, how much was that? How much are you having to pay off every month? How much are the cost of exams for coming to work in the UK? How much would it cost for immigration? What's the cost of living like? Before you consider, okay, well, I'll be getting this much, and so my net salary will be X, taking into account all the things that I've mentioned and having to take that out of your monthly salary. And one of the basic things that people don't realize actually is that they may see a job advertised for, let's say, £24,000. So when I first came to the UK about 10 years ago, the starting salary for an FY1, which is an intern, what we would call an intern in the Caribbean, was £24,000, about 23,800 or something like that. So for some people in certain places, they may say, okay, well, actually that's quite a lot. For other people, based on their conversion rate and what their expenses are, they might say, actually, that's all that an intern or FY1 doctor would make in the UK. So it has gone up over the years. But so when you think of the salary breakdown, for example, of somebody who gets about £24,000, some persons may think, I'm getting £2,000 a month, which is obviously never going to be the case. You have to think about all the deductions that need to be made. So what I advise people to do is, if they see a job on a particular website and you have the overall gross salary, is to put that figure into one of the salary calculator websites. I'll put one of them down below in the description. They're all over. And what they do is they take down, the full amount, the gross, and they make certain deductions for you. So one of them is the tax code and how much you'll be taxed. And when most people are not familiar with the UK's way of taxing, if you're not from here, so you get taxed a certain percentage. You get taxed 20% if your salary is below, I think it's 37,700. You get taxed 40% from 37,700 to 150. I may be wrong. And then you get 45% taxed if it's above a certain figure. But the website can calculate that for you. And you also have a tax-free allowance. So most people have a particular amount that they will deduct before they tax your money. So there's a box on the website that says, what is a tax code? The most common one is 1257L. So you just put that in there. And then the third thing that's asked of you in the website is any pension deductions. So in the UK, you get automatically put into the NHS pension scheme if you do a job within the NHS. It used to be 9.3% for most junior doctors when they came across, but that has changed. So for most junior doctors, now it's about 9.8% that is deducted for the NHS pension, and it goes up to 13.5% based on your salary. So you can put in 9.8% because that's likely going to be the deduction for the NHS pension. And again, you can opt out of NHS pension once you're here or once you've started the job, but most times that's another deduction that's just automatically done. So once you put all of these things in, then it will break it down for you in terms of the gross and net salary for the year and for the month. So somebody who is a FY1 doctor back in the day who used to make 24,000, they may have taken home 1,400, 1,500. That's not the case at the moment. It's gone up to, I think, about 28 or 29,000 for an FY1 or a fresh intern, as it were. And then the other thing to check out is the BMA website. So the British Medical Association website has a list of the pension breakdown. It has a list of the salary expectations for persons at different levels. So that's always a useful tool. Okay, so the government website, the salary calculator, and the British Medical Association are resources that I think anybody from outside of the UK coming in would benefit from a lot, having gone through those those sites. And I mention that from the money perspective as well, because, you know, we speak about maybe 24,000 being not a lot for some people and quite a lot for others. And again, it's where you're coming from, because for certain people from certain countries, um, they may be making much more money than that, you know, in their country. So why would you come to work a job where you're actually possibly making less? So for certain communities, money or financial gain is very low on their list of why they would want to come to the UK. Okay, so that's simple as. But from the money aspect as well, I also think that the short term financial spending versus the long term financial reward should be looked at. And I say that, for example, like thinking about the US versus the UK. In the US, you have more expensive exams to get into the training programs and to get into the US to work. Whereas in the UK, the exams are cheaper, but in the US, you would make more money overall. So you have to think about, maybe do I stay where I am and work a little bit longer, save up a little bit more money so that I can spend on these exams to go, for example, to the US, where I will know that I will receive more in the long run. But again, that's just if you're thinking about the financial side of it, because thinking about going to the US versus the UK, there are so many other things to take into account, like just the work environment, the way of living, the way of working. So that's just one point. Okay, so yes, so these are the reasons I considered, and I think people should consider when thinking about whether to move to the UK. Let me know what you thought about it. What was your reason for moving to the UK if you're already here? And if you're not, what would be your reason for wanting to come to the UK? And also let me know what you guys want me to go into more detail about, or what advice you would like me to specifically cover when thinking about life in the UK as an international medical graduate. And don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. I'm new to all of this, but I think it's quite exciting to be able to at least get some information out there. So yes, please help out with the algorithm. And I shall see you next Sunday. Take care. All my love, Dr. Olivia. Bye.